Yes, and you're still with me, Frank Malaba, on Bassa Today. And sitting with me in studio now, I've got two artists. Intimidating men. I'm joking. How are you gentlemen doing? I've got Daniel-Hirshmann, I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Absolutely fine.
And andre-clements.
Hi, Frank.
You gentlemen are going to be opening a new exhibition on Tuesday the 14th called Dencity. And either somebody cannot spell or there's something going on with that name, Dencity. It's not the normal one that we know. Tell us a little bit about the title.
Well, if I can jump in, the title is spelled with a C for city.
Okay.
As in Dencity, as in den, hiding places, city. It's a show that very much shows something about the urban environment, about living in the city.
And so where do you come in, Daniel?
Well, I'm a South African living in England, and when I had a long chat with Ricardo about having a show in South Africa, Andre was a sort of natural person to have a collaborative show with, because we both do a lot of work with images within the city, within the urban landscape. And so we basically started working together across the divide and created a series of pieces that would be able to create a nice, interesting, we think, dialogue around living in an urban environment.
And for those of you at home who are wondering who is Ricardo, Ricardo actually is the gallery owner of Resolution Gallery, which is on the Strip. And if you'll remember, last week we started a series on the Strip, on the galleries on the Strip, where we will be familiarizing you with the gallery. So I'm glad you mentioned Ricardo, because that's one of the people that people can meet when they go on the Strip.
And he's a good person to meet. He's loads of fun.
He is. Tell me about the process. How did this come about? How did you, because I understand there's a lot of collaborative work that has come through. How did this come about, this exhibition?
Well, I think one of the things that made it possible is the fact that we both work predominantly digitally. And in the processes through which we make our art, we do use a lot of photographic, or I should say digital source material, be it photographic or video. That, of course, allowed us to send the same material between each other, between Johannesburg and London, and literally work on the same material and apply our own processes and methods to the same material.
So you clearly have two different methods, and you're imposing them on one another?
To some degree. I mean, we're actually just imposing the content on one another.
Okay.
And then what happened was, because we have such different styles, I think the resulting images that we were sending each other would also influence how we approached our own subject matter. And so there was this really interesting process where Andre would send me some of the images he used to create one of his beautiful works, and then I would see how what the results were from his process, and create something on my side which I would perhaps alter slightly to try and achieve something similar or very different, and then vice versa. We'd just start dialoguing like that. It was a really interesting artistic conversation that took place, with a lot of ridiculous words being thrown at each other at the same time, and some really interesting Skype conversations. It was a truly collaborative and enjoyable process.
Absolutely, and very, very stimulating.
So for somebody that has never walked into an art gallery before, that's coming to see your work, what do you feel they could take home with them? What do you feel they can take away from this exhibition on Tuesday?
Perhaps it's very hard to say, because every person sees and experiences art in their own way. It's one of the beauties of art. But perhaps something about just seeing new angles in your ordinary everyday experience of the city, of your environment.
I think one of the things that we both discovered when dealing with the content was the cities are cities everywhere. We may be in Johannesburg right now, but London, New York, Paris, they're all big cities, big metropolises around the world, which have similarities in them despite their cultural differences. And they all have these little tiny hiding spaces, these little places that kind of get left behind in the history of the development of that city. And so our work sort of plays a little bit with that on some level, where you start discovering things within images, within cityscapes that you perhaps wouldn't have noticed before, because of the way they've been overlaid and played with our digital processes. The fun thing is, from an absolutely, walk into the gallery, you have a look at some images, a really, straight up the street scenario, what you'll see is some really exciting image images that have been created in the digital process. That in itself is quite a tremendous change from what one would normally typically expect to see in a gallery space. So from that point of view, the excitement is hopefully quite huge.
For somebody that's sitting at home, please explain digital process. Because are we talking about a photograph? Are we talking about a computer-generated image? When you say digital process, what is it that you're talking about, Andre?
Well, in social media marketing, they like to talk about digital natives, people that have grown up with digital technology all around. But even for those who are digital natives, if you think back of the traditional notion of an art gallery, you think about a painting on a wall.
Mona Lisa.
Mona Lisa or a Picasso. You think about marks being made on a canvas. Now, with digital art, we are using computers to facilitate the process of creating marks. Sometimes, as happens in a lot of illustration, directly through inputting either by a mouse or a stylus or something like that. What's happening, I believe, in the case of people like myself and Daniel and many other artists, is that we're taking that level of gesture making, of making movements and decisions, up one level where we're making those decisions and those movements either in code or in concept. It's not necessarily physically on the canvas. And then I think what's very interesting about this particular show is that in both of my and Daniel's work, you will see gestures that recall or evoke those traditional brush or etching originating marks.
The only difference being no paintbrush touched it physically.
Basically.
Beautiful.
The only thing that... Well, one of the things that I sort of explored with my process was to create, literally in that sort of traditional artistic world, this digital painting process.
Okay.
And so there is no software that really sort of paints for you, so the task was to create one.
So you still have to work,
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
just copying and pasting things
No.
onto a screen.
There's no filter that says, okay, paint this. So, well, there is a filter, but it just looks the same, no matter what content you throw at it. But, so, in order to create that, nowadays you have these amazing artists around the world creating programmatic work, algorithmic, generative processes for themselves that only they get to use. And so this is basically one of the processes that I use to create my images, and I know that there's some scripting involved on Andre's side.
Yes.
Although on my side, I like to use more of the traditional multiple exposure photography kind of approach, except that digital allows me to use many more exposures in the same image than what I would be able to do in a traditional darkroom. So the painterly marks, when I create a piece that is reminiscent of cubism, for example, the breaking up of the image, I achieve that not by going in and editing the detail. I achieve that by taking a lot of photographs and averaging those images on top of each other. In fact, I like to joke and tell people that I make average art. And they'll say, no, don't be so humble. And I'll say, no, really, I make average art.
That's great. From my side, the way that the process works is any movement in an image generates paint, and what paint is created is basically controlled by me using sort of I kind of use an iPad as a painter's palette. So I touch a button on the iPad, and that kind of chooses a specific type of paintbrush to be used based on whatever movement the camera happens to be seeing. And those camera images can either be video or stills. In the case of this exhibition, all of the images were produced using still images, a series of still images, the same sort of process that Andre used.
That's quite fantastic. Is this the first time that either of you is collaborating, either with each other, or have you collaborated with other people before?
Well, it's the first time we're collaborating with each other. I think we're both the kind of artists who enjoy and get a lot of value and mileage out of collaborating. In my case specifically, about 3-4 years ago, I did a significant amount of collaboration with Nathaniel Stern, who was then based in South Africa. He had a fabulous process project he called Compressionism, where he would create a little action suit that involved a scanner and a battery, and he would go and climb into a Marencha Dam and scan the environment he's moving through, and then eventually reconstitute the digital information back into an image. Really beautiful, beautiful pieces.
That is quite incredible stuff. Do you think that the face of art is changing? Do you think what I think. Let me go Leonardo da Vinci, for example, and what you guys are doing. What is the difference?
A couple of 100 years to start, but to be fair, the world of art always changes. It depends on what happens to be happening right now in technology, in image creation methods, in absolutely everything that influences creative people. So the face of art changes probably daily, I suppose, but it'd be hard to kind of assess that. Yeah, absolutely. So it's very true. But the fact is, today, with today's technology, so many things get added to the arts. It doesn't have to be just about printmaking and image making or digital painting, gestural processes, etc. It could be about building large-scale mechanical light-based artworks or interactive responsive pieces or spaces that respond to people. All that stuff is happening right now. So the reason it's changing is because the technology is available to people, i.e. it's not only available to those with a PhD, it's actually cheap enough for anyone to start using.
That is
and
true.
So any creative soul can start playing with this stuff and start producing things that tells their story or tells whatever it is they want to tell. So it's an exciting time now because there's just so many other options out there.
So it has become more accessible to the general man on the street. We're not waiting for a master artist to come up with the next David, for example.
I think absolutely it's more accessible to people to be creative. But sometimes being creative with technology or with anything doesn't necessarily mean becoming an artist. It may mean just solving a problem in your home. So, but some people realize that, wait, I've just solved this problem for myself. Now I want to create this amazing artwork that shoots cows in the air once every 5 minutes. There could be that step. But the great scenario that we're enjoying right now is that creativity has an opportunity to flourish in a way that it hasn't before because of the accessibility of technology and other things.
Absolutely.
Andre, what do you have to say to people that find art galleries intimidating? People that are afraid to walk into an art gallery. What do you have to say to them?
First and foremost, realize that the art gallery is probably finding you just as intimidating. I'll say this: running an art gallery in today's market is a very, very difficult thing to do. And generally, if you're walking into an art gallery, you can know that the people who are there because they want to be and they believe in art. And in my experience, certainly, most of those people are desperate to share what they enjoy and get out of the art world. Yes, it's all white walls and white frames, and sometimes it can be a little bit alien and even seem clinical, strangely enough. But generally, just walk through the door and see what happens. Usually it's a very, very good experience.
One thing I will say that from both of our points of view, it was really important to us to try and make some of the work accessible to everybody.
Absolutely.
So, unfortunately, these things cost money to produce and to sell. But we didn't want our work to be totally inaccessible. So hopefully everybody will have something that they'll be able to take home if they wanted to. And at the very least, there's a postcard, which is quite lovely.
Oh, yes, I've seen the postcard. Very, very beautiful. Well, gentlemen, I'm afraid that's all we have for today. It's crazy how much time flies when you're in the studio.
Absolutely.
One last question. Daniel, what can we expect from your guys' work?
I think you'll walk into the exhibition space and you'll be quite surprised by the kinds of images that have been created. And I think there'll be a lot of recognition in what people see inside of each of the images, which is very exciting. There'll be recognition, and there'll also be some confusion as to how does an image like that get created. And I think that's, just from an exploration and adventure point of view, that's the first thing you'll get. Beyond that, you can just sit and stare at some of these images for ages and ages and ages. And if you need to have a seat, get a coffee and don't leave.
So if you'd like to go into an art gallery and stare at those images for ages and ages and ages, it's going to be on the 14th of June, which is a Tuesday evening. I think it's going to be at 6:30. And you can actually go. It's on the Strip. Don't be scared to go near the gallery. It's called Resolution Gallery. It's on the Strip at the corner of Bolton and Jan Smuts roundabouts. And you will know where it is because there will be a lot of people outside, and there will be cars parked there, so you're not going to miss it for the world. So you can actually go over and have a look. You don't have to feel pressured to buy because you're there to see and to experience the gallery, build a relationship with it, and also to, think about buying, and also to connect with the artists. I believe they will be there in the flesh, and you can ask them some of the questions you'd like to know yourself. That's it from me, Frank.